Picture this. The year is 66 million BC, and a rock 10 kilometers wide is screaming toward Earth at 20 kilometers per second. You're not there. Obviously, nobody you know is there. Humans won't exist for tens of millions of years, but everything about whether you ever exist at all comes down to where this single rock lands in the next 4 hours. And here's the thing, nobody tells you. Okay, so listen, that asteroid almost missed, not by a lot, by minutes, by a sliver of trajectory. And if it had come in just a little later, splashed down into the deep ocean instead of slamming into shallow rock, the dinosaurs would have walked away from that day and kept right on ruling the planet forever. That's what we're doing today. We're walking through the world that never happened, the one where the lizards win and you, me, your dog, your weird uncle, all of us never show up at all. And look, if this kind of thing scratches your brain in the right way, do yourself a favor and hit subscribe. We post this kind of dive every single week. Ring the bell if you're feeling fancy. That's the only time I'll bug you about it. Now, let's get into it. So first, let me set the scene properly, because most people have a cartoon version of this in their heads. They think of the asteroid impact like a light switch. 1 second dinosaurs, next second nothing, big boom, done. That's not how it went. The truth is way more terrifying and way more precise, and the precision is the whole point of this story. The object that hit was about 10 kilometers across. That's the size of a small city, basically, a chunk of rock and metal left over from the birth of the solar system, drifting for billions of years until its path crossed ours. And it wasn't drifting slowly when it arrived. It was moving at roughly 20 kilometers every single second. Let that sit for a moment. In the time it takes you to say the word second, this thing covered 20 kilometers. You could not see it coming in any meaningful way. By the time it was close enough to matter, it was already over. Here's the part that genuinely keeps me up at night. 4 hours before impact, the dinosaur's fate was already sealed. 4 hours, the rock was locked onto its course. No steering, no slowing down, gravity just pulling it in. And in those final 4 hours, every dinosaur on the planet was doing completely normal dinosaur things. A trike was chewing on ferns, a T-Rex was sleeping off a big meal, somewhere a herd of duck-billed hadrosaurs was migrating along a coastline. None of them looked up. None of them knew. The clock was already at zero, they just hadn't felt it yet. And now here's where the almost missed thing becomes real. And I want you to really feel how thin this was. The asteroid hit what's now the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, in shallow coastal water, sitting on top of a very specific kind of rock. That rock was loaded with sulfur and full of carbonates, the worst possible chemistry to vaporize and throw into the sky. If the rotation of the Earth had been off by just a touch, if that rock had arrived minutes earlier or minutes later, the spot under it would have been different. Spin the planet a few minutes forward, and that exact patch of shallow sulfur-rich rock rotates out of the way, and the asteroid comes down in the deep open ocean instead. And you'd think, deep ocean, that's even worse, right? Bigger splash, bigger waves. But no. And let me explain, because this is the hinge the entire future of life swings on. When a giant rock hits deep water, a huge amount of that energy gets absorbed and spread out by the sheer volume of the sea. You'd still get monstrous tsunamis, you'd still get devastation along the coast, but the thing that actually killed the dinosaurs wasn't the wave, it was the sky. It was what got thrown up into the atmosphere and stayed there. Hit deep ocean, and you launch water vapor which rains back out in days. Hit that shallow sulfur-soaked rock, and you launch a poison veil that hangs over the whole planet for a year. So the difference between dinosaurs living and dinosaurs dying came down to a window of a few minutes and a few hundred kilometers of geography. That's it. That's the coin flip that built your entire world. You would call that crazy, right? Well, you're not alone in thinking it sounds too neat. But unfortunately, the geology backs it up. The rock under the Yucatan was the loaded gun, and the timing pulled the trigger. Now let's talk about what actually happened when it did connect, because the numbers here are completely unhinged. The impact released energy equal to roughly 100 million nuclear bombs going off at the same moment in the same place. Not 100, not 1,000, 100 million. There is no animal, no plant, nothing within 1,000 kilometers that experiences that as anything other than instant erasure. The rock punched a crater more than 150 kilometers wide. It dug through the crust. It vaporized itself and everything around it. But again, the explosion isn't the killer. The explosion is local. The killer is what comes next. And this is where you need to picture the whole planet, not just Mexico. The impact blasted an enormous amount of pulverized rock and dust and soot straight up past the clouds into the high atmosphere where there's no weather to wash it down. That dust spread out and wrapped the entire Earth in a shroud. And it blocked the sun for about a year. Think about what that actually means. A year of dimness. A year where the sun is a faint smudge behind a brown sky, if you can see it at all. Plants run on sunlight, that's the whole deal. That's photosynthesis. Cut the sunlight and the plants stop growing. They wither. They die. And here's the chain reaction. Here's the part that's genuinely brutal. When the plants die, the plant eaters starve. The big herbivores, the trikes, the hadrosaurs, the long-necked giants, they need enormous amounts of vegetation every single day to keep those bodies running. The food just stops existing. And then, when the plant eaters starve, the meat eaters that hunted them starve too, because their food was the food that ate the food. The whole pyramid collapses from the bottom up. And it wasn't just the dark. The temperature crashed. With the sun blocked, the surface of the Earth dropped by almost 30 degrees Celsius in a lot of places. A global winter that came on fast and stayed. Cold-blooded creatures, big bodies that needed warmth. Suddenly the climate they'd evolved for over millions of years just wasn't there anymore. It was dark, it was freezing, and there was nothing to eat. That's the actual apocalypse, not the bang. The long, cold, starving silence after. When the dust finally settled, here's the toll. 3/4 of all species on Earth were gone. 3 out of 4 wiped off the board. We call it the End Cretaceous extinction, and it is one of the most complete resets life has ever been through. And the dinosaurs, the rulers of the planet for an unimaginable stretch of time, were almost entirely erased in that one event that started with a few minutes of bad cosmic timing. Now, I want to push back on something you've probably heard, because it's important and it's the thing that makes the almost missed angle hit so hard. A lot of people have this idea that the dinosaurs were already on their way out, that they were these lumbering, outdated, doomed creatures. And the asteroid just finished off a dying dynasty. Like they were going to fade away anyway, and the rock just sped things up. Here's the crazy part. That's wrong. Flat out wrong. Right before the impact, the dinosaurs were not declining. They were thriving. They were at a peak of diversity. New species, new forms, new specializations popping up all over the world. They were dominant, they were everywhere, they were doing great. There is no signature in the fossil record of a group quietly dying off. They got cut down at the absolute height of their game. And that's what makes this whole thing so haunting, because it means there was nothing inevitable about it. They weren't supposed to go, they got unlucky. A rock the size of a city happened to land on the one patch of poison rock at the one wrong moment, and a dynasty that ruled the world for ages ended on a coin flip. And I really want you to sit with how long that dynasty actually lasted, because the human brain is genuinely bad at this number. The dinosaurs ruled the Earth for about 165 million years. 165 million. Now, the entire genus Homo, the whole human story, every cousin and ancestor and version of us, all of it, goes back maybe 2.5 million years, and that's being generous. So, the dinosaurs ruled for something like 66 times longer than the entire human lineage has even existed. 66 times. Let me try to make that real for you, because the raw number just bounces off. Imagine the whole reign of the dinosaurs squeezed into a single year, January 1st to December 31st. On that scale, the entire existence of the human genus, everything we've ever done, every cave painting and pyramid and city and rocket, all of human-ish history, fits into the last handful of days of December. The dinosaurs had the other 360 days. They had the spring, there's the summer, the fall. We're a sliver at the very end of December. That's the company we're keeping when we call ourselves the dominant species. We are toddlers next to a dynasty that ran for an age beyond comprehension. And they didn't just exist for a long time. They were genuinely mechanically superior at certain things, and this is where it gets really fun, because to understand the world that never happened, you have to understand why dinosaurs were so good at being big. So let me explain how a dinosaur breathed, because it's the secret to the whole thing. You breathe like a mammal. Your lungs are basically two bags. You suck air in, the bags inflate. You pull oxygen out of it, then you push that same now stale air back out the way it came. In, out, same passage. Two directions, it works fine. But it's not the most efficient system in the world, because every breath you take is a mix, fresh air going in colliding with old used air coming out, so your lungs never get a clean full hit of pure oxygen. It's a tidal system. The tide comes in, the tide goes out, and there's always some murky water left behind. Dinosaurs did not breathe like that. Dinosaurs breathed like birds. And here's the crazy part. Birds breathe in one of the most efficient ways any animal on Earth ever has. Instead of a two-way bag system, birds and the dinosaurs they came from use a one-directional flow. Air moves through the lungs in a single continuous stream, one way, always forward, never mixing fresh with stale. They have a whole system of air sacs, balloons of air that store and push the air through, so the lungs are constantly bathed in fresh oxygen. Even when the animal breathes out, fresh air is still moving across the lungs. There's no stale tide. It's a river, always flowing the same direction, always clean. And it gets wilder because those air sacs didn't just sit in the chest. They pushed out into the bones. The dinosaurs had hollow bones threaded with air pockets, the same way birds do today. This did two incredible things at once. One, it made their breathing absurdly efficient, pulling more oxygen out of every breath than a mammal ever could. Two, it made their skeletons lighter than they looked. A long-necked giant with a 50-foot neck wasn't dragging around solid bone the whole way. A lot of that frame was honeycombed with air, light and strong at the same time. And now, here's why that matters. Here's the payoff. Because they could pull so much oxygen so efficiently, and because air-filled bones let them build huge frames without collapsing under their own weight, dinosaurs could get absolutely, ridiculously enormous. The biggest of them, the long-necked sauropods, grew to 50 tons. 50 tons of animal walking around, eating plants, casually being the size of a building. And that wasn't a fluke. That wasn't one weird record holder. Multiple lineages of these things hit that scale all over the world across millions of years. Now compare that to mammals. Compare that to us, to our whole branch of life. The largest land mammal that has ever existed never got past about 20 tons. Ever. Not the biggest extinct rhino relatives, not anything. 20 tons was the ceiling for mammals on land. The dinosaurs blew straight past that to 50 and kept going. The difference between 50 and 20 isn't a small gap. It's more than double. And the reason for it is literally the way they breathed. Their lungs let them build bodies our lungs simply can't support. That's not opinion, that's plumbing. The lizards had a better engine, and a better engine lets you build a bigger machine. So just to land this point, because it reframes everything, the dinosaurs weren't big and clumsy and doomed. They were big and efficient and dominant, breathing with a system more advanced than the one in your own chest right now, building bodies on a scale mammals have never once matched in the entire history of the planet. They were not a failed experiment. They were the most successful land animals that ever lived, and they were taken out by a rock that almost missed. And here's the thing that really flips the script, and I want to spend a minute on it, because it's the heart of why your world is the way it is.
You probably think that mammals spent all those millions of years cowering in the shadow of the dinosaurs because the dinosaurs were so big and scary, right? Like the only reason your ancestors stayed small and lived in burrows and came out at night was that there were T-Rexes stomping around, eating anything bigger than a rat. That's the story we tell, and it's mostly wrong. For about 150 million years, mammals stayed small, tiny, most of them, the size of mice, the size of shrews, the biggest, maybe the size of a badger, and that's it. They scurried, they hid, they ate insects and seeds in the dark, and the standard explanation is that the dinosaurs kept them down. But here's the part that's genuinely surprising. It wasn't really the dinosaurs holding mammals back, it was other mammals. Let me explain. Every ecological role you can imagine for a small creature, the nighttime bug hunter, the seed eater, the little burrower, the tree climber, all of those jobs were already taken. And they were taken by other mammals who'd gotten there first and were perfectly good at them.
The reason your ancestors couldn't get bigger or branch out wasn't that a dinosaur was going to step on them. It was that there was no open space. Every niche, every way of making a living at small size was already filled by another furry thing that was already doing it well. They weren't trapped under the dinosaur's feet. They were trapped in a crowded waiting room, each one blocking the others. Nobody able to break out because every exit already had somebody standing in it. So think about what that means for the world that never happened. If the asteroid misses, that logjam never breaks. The dinosaurs keep the big body rolls, sure, but the small mammal world stays exactly as gridlocked as it was. And that means the ancestors of elephants, the ancestors of primates, the ancestors of you, they stay badger-sized. Forever, not for a while. Not until things calm down. Forever. There's no opening, no reset, no empty stage. The mammals stay tiny because the only thing that ever gave them room to grow was 3/4 of all life suddenly vanishing. Take away the catastrophe and you take away the opportunity, and the most ambitious thing your lineage ever achieves is being a slightly chunky, nocturnal critter rooting around for grubs while the giants rule the daylight. That's the trade. Your existence, the whole upright, big-brained, city-building human deal, was paid for in advance by the death of 3 out of 4 species on the planet. The asteroid didn't just clear out the dinosaurs. It kicked open a door that had been jammed shut for 150 million years, and your ancestors were the ones who happened to be standing nearest to it when it finally swung wide. Okay, now let me actually introduce you to some of the rulers of this world, because if you're going to mourn a world that never happened, you should know who you're mourning, and the obvious place to start is the one everybody knows, the tyrant lizard king himself, T-Rex.
But I bet you don't know how it actually hunted. And the truth is way scarier than the movies. We tend to picture T-Rex as this dumb, roaring brute, basically a big mouth on legs that blunders around. Wrong again. T-Rex had genuinely incredible senses, and the standout is its eyes.
Rex had binocular vision, meaning its eyes faced forward and their fields overlapped. The same setup you have, the same setup an eagle has, the setup you need for precise depth perception, for judging exactly how far away your target is before you commit. And here's the crazy part. Estimates of how sharp that vision was put it well beyond ours. Some assessments suggest T-Rex could see with a clarity sharper than a hawk's and could potentially pick out prey from as far as 6 kilometers away. 6 kilometers. Let me put you in that. Picture yourself standing in an open plain at dusk. You squint at the horizon and you see what? Vague shapes? A blur where the land meets the sky? Now stand a T-Rex in your spot. It's not seeing a blur, it's seeing a specific animal, sharp and clear, 6 kilometers out, already calculating. You would never know it had clocked you. By the time something that big was close enough for you to register it as a threat, it had already been watching you, tracking you with hawk-grade eyesight for a very long time. That's not a brute. That's a precision predator with the eyes of a bird of prey, scaled up to the size of a bus. And it wasn't alone out there. The plains of the late Cretaceous were not empty. Between predators, they were packed with prey, and one animal in particular absolutely dominated, the Triceratops, that three-horned, frilled, armored tank of a dinosaur you've seen 1,000 times. Here's the stat that genuinely shocked me. By some estimates, Triceratops made up around 5 out of every 6 large fossils from the very end of the Cretaceous. 5/6 of all the big animal fossils we find from that final chapter, the overwhelming majority are trikes. What does that actually tell you? It tells you these things weren't rare showpiece animals. They were the bison of their world, the default, the background animal. Picture the Great Plains of North America before the cattle ranches, those endless herds of buffalo stretching to the horizon, the ground shaking with them. Now make every one of those buffalo a 4-legged armored beast with 3 horns and a giant bony shield on its skull, moving in herds across the same kind of open country. That was the late Cretaceous landscape. Armored bison everywhere, in numbers and stalking the edges of those herds, the hawk-eyed tyrants picking out the weak from 6 kilometers away. That's the world. That's what was here, doing fine, thriving, peaking, when a rock that almost missed came down on the one wrong spot at the one wrong minute. And I keep coming back to that because it's the engine of this whole story. Everything you're picturing, the hawk-eyed king, the armored herds, the 50-ton giants breathing through a system better than yours, none of it was supposed to end. It ended on a technicality of cosmic geometry. A few minutes the other way, and all of it keeps going. So let's actually go there. Let's build the world that never happened. The timeline where the asteroid splashes harmlessly into deep ocean and the dinosaurs wake up the next morning to a slightly weird sky, and absolutely nothing else changed. What does that planet look like as the millions of years roll on? First thing, the big stay big and the small stay small. And that gridlock I told you about never breaks. The sauropods keep stomping around as living skyscrapers. The horned herds keep covering the plains. The tyrants keep ruling the top of the food chain. And your ancestors, those badger-sized mammals, keep doing their nervous little nighttime shuffle through the underbrush generation after generation, with no door opening, no big bodies to grow into, no daylight to claim. 100 million more years could roll by in that world, and a primate the size of a person might never appear. There's just no room. Oh yeah, the stage is full and the show never ends. But here's a question that's way more interesting than would dinosaurs still be around? And it's the one that makes this whole thought experiment worth doing. In that world, would there ever be intelligence? Real intelligence, the kind that hunts with strategy, that solves problems, that maybe even uses tools. Because we like to think intelligence is our thing, the special human prize. But what if the door to a smart mind was open to the dinosaurs too, and it turns out it might have been? Let me introduce you to a dinosaur called Troodon. Now, I'll get deeper into Troodon and what its descendants might have become as we go on, but here's the setup, here's the tease. Troodon was small, it was nimble, and crucially, it had a brain that was large for a dinosaur, paired with big forward-facing eyes and grasping hands. In a lot of ways, it had the raw starting ingredients you'd want if you were going to roll the dice on intelligence. And in the world where the asteroid misses, with millions and millions of uninterrupted years to keep evolving, something like Troodon had every chance to keep getting smarter. Pack hunting, coordination, maybe deception, maybe tools. But, and here's the cliffhanger I'm going to leave you on for now, there's a hard ceiling on that kind of mind, a wall it would slam into that no amount of evolution in that world would let it climb over. There's a reason a smart dinosaur could become a brilliant pack hunter and still never ever build a city or look up at the stars and ask why it exists. And that limit, that exact wall, is where this story is heading, because the final twist in all of this isn't about the dinosaurs at all. It's about you and the impossible price your existence was bought at. For now, just hold on to the shape of it. A rock 10 kilometers wide, 20 kilometers a second. 4 hours of a fate already sealed while the world chewed its ferns in peace. 100 million nuclear bombs, a year of darkness, 30 degrees of cold, 3/4 of all life gone. 165 million years of rule ended on a margin of minutes. The hawk-eyed king and the armored herds and the breathing giants, all of it, balanced on a coin that landed the only way that could ever lead to you. Let me circle back to that timing one more time, because it's the thing I genuinely cannot get over, and I want to make sure you feel the full weight of it before we go further. We're not talking about a near miss in the sense of the asteroid almost flying past the Earth entirely. It was always going to hit the planet. The almost missed is about where on the planet it hit. And that's controlled by something almost comically small, the rotation of the Earth in those final hours. The Earth spins once a day. As that rock was making its final approach, the planet was turning underneath it. So the exact spot that happened to be facing the incoming asteroid at the moment of impact was determined by what time of day it was at that longitude. Rotate the planet a little, and a completely different patch of surface is sitting in the crosshairs. And the patch that was actually there, that shallow Yucatan shelf, was about the worst possible target in the entire world. Sulfur-rich, carbonate-rich, shallow enough that the impact could throw all of that chemistry skyward, instead of burying it under kilometers of absorbing seawater. So run the scenario where it's off by even a handful of minutes. The planet has turned just enough that the Yucatan has rotated out of the firing line and deep ocean has rotated in. Same rock, same speed, same 100 million bombs of energy, but now that energy dumps into the deep sea, where the vast volume of water swallows a huge share of it, and the stuff thrown into the sky is mostly water vapor that rains back down within days, not a year-long shroud of a sun-blocking poison dust. You'd get catastrophe, yes, coastal devastation, regional death, but not the global year of night, not the 30-degree crash, not the collapse of the entire food web from the bottom up. The dinosaurs take the hit and they endure.
And that is the entire difference between a world full of them and a world full of us, decided by where the planet happened to be in its daily spin. Think about how absurd that is. Every human being who has ever lived, every love story,
Every war, every song, every single thing our species has ever done or felt, all of it traces back through an unbroken chain of cause and effect to the precise minute and the precise spot where one rock came down 66 million years ago. Slide that moment a few minutes in either direction, and the chain never starts. You don't get a different version of human history. You get no human history. The whole story just never happens, and the dinosaurs keep the planet, and the universe goes on without anyone like you in it to notice.
That's the part that makes this more than a fun fact about big lizards. It's a story about how staggeringly contingent you are. We walk around feeling like the obvious main characters of Earth, like the planet was always building toward us, like intelligence and humanity were the destination the whole thing was aiming for. And then you look at this single rock and this single minute, and you realize, no.
We weren't the plan. We were the wildly improbable consequence of the single most destructive day the planet ever had. The dinosaurs were the plan. They ruled for 165 million years. They were thriving. They were the obvious winners, and they only lost on a fluke. We are the thing that crawled out of their grave, and we only got the chance because the grave got dug. And that, weirdly, is what makes me appreciate all of it more, not less, because it means none of this was guaranteed. The fact that you're sitting there with a brain big enough to be curious about a world that never existed, the fact that you can even imagine the alternate timeline where the rock splashes into the sea and the trikes go on grazing, that whole capacity exists because of an accident so precise it almost didn't happen. You are, in the most literal sense, made of the dinosaurs' bad luck. So let's keep building this dead world, because we've only scratched it. We've got the giants and the herds and the hawk-eyed kings. We've got the gridlock that keeps mammals tiny. And we've got the tease of a smart dinosaur, the Troodon, sitting there with the raw ingredients of a mind. And we've got the wall it could never climb. There's a lot more to walk through, and every piece of it tells you something about why your world looks the way it does. But before we get into the deep stuff about intelligence and the wall and the final twist, I want to make sure the foundation is rock solid in your head. So let me hammer the big beats one more time, the way you'd tell it to your best bro on the couch when you're trying to blow his mind. 66 million years ago, a rock the size of a city, 20 kilometers a second, which is so fast it's basically impossible to picture, the whole length of a marathon covered roughly twice over in a single second. 4 hours before it hit, the dinosaurs' story was already over. They just didn't know it. Still munching, still migrating, still ruling, the clock already at zero. It hits the Yucatan, the worst spot on Earth. Shallow sulfur rock, 100 million nuclear bombs of energy in one instant. A crater over 150 kilometers wide. But the explosion is the small part. The dust goes up, wraps the planet, blocks the sun for a year. Plants die, plant eaters starve, meat eaters starve. Temperatures crash by almost 30 degrees, a global winter of darkness and famine, and when it lifts, 3 out of 4 species on the whole planet are gone. Not because the dinosaurs were weak, they were at their peak. Because one rock landed on one spot at 1 minute, and a few minutes the other way it would have hit deep water, and none of it would have happened. That's the spine of it, and everything we build from here hangs off that spine, the breathing that let them get to 50 tons when mammals never beat 20. The eyes of the T-Rex that could spot you 6 kilometers out sharper than a hawk. The trike herds that made up 5 out of every 6 big fossils at the end, armored bison covering the plains. The mammals locked at badger size for 150 million years, not by the dinosaurs but by each other, jammed in a waiting room with no exits, and the door that only opened because the catastrophe blew it open. Here's a thought to chew on while we head toward the next part. We always frame the asteroid as the great destroyer, the bringer of death, the end of an age, and it was all of that. But from where you're sitting, it was also the single most creative event in the history of your lineage. It didn't just kill 3/4 of life, it cleared the stage, it emptied the niches, it unjammed the waiting room, every big thing your ancestors ever became. Every step from badger-sized critter toward upright tool user only became possible because the giants got out of the way and the gridlock shattered in a single afternoon. The destroyer and the creator were the same rock. Death for them was the only door to life for you. And that's the strange, beautiful, slightly horrifying logic that this whole story runs on, the logic we're going to follow all the way to its end. Because the deeper we go into the world that never happened, the more you start to realize that the question isn't really, what if the dinosaurs lived? The real question, the one that's been hiding under this the whole time, is what does it mean that you only exist because they died? Hold that thought.
We're just getting started, and the next part is where it gets really wild, because that's where we go hunting with the smartest dinosaur that ever lived and find out exactly where the wall stands that it could never ever cross. Let me leave you in the scene one more time before we move on, just so the world feels real and not like a list of numbers. Picture it. The asteroid has missed the bad spot. It came down in the deep blue, far out to sea. The tsunamis have rolled and faded. The dust has thinned, and it's morning on the plains of a continent that will never be called North America, because there will never be anyone to name it. The horned herds are grazing, kilometers of armored backs catching the light. A long-necked giant rears up to strip the high branches of a tree, its breath flowing one clean direction through air-filled bones. And somewhere at the tree line, a pair of forward-facing eyes, sharp as a hawk, is already watching, already measuring the distance, already deciding. The sun comes up on a world that kept its kings. And nowhere in that entire endless landscape, not now, not in 100 million years, is there anything that will ever stand upright, look at that same sun, and wonder why it's there at all. That world has everything except a witness. And the only reason you get to be one is that, in the real timeline, the rock didn't miss. So let's go hunting. I told you we'd meet the smartest dinosaur that ever lived, and now it's time, because Trudon is where this whole story turns from the dinosaurs ruled into something genuinely unsettling. Picture this. You're standing in a forest at the edge of the late Cretaceous, the light going gold and low through the trees, and something is moving in the underbrush. Not a giant, not a tank with horns, something small, light, fast, about the size of a person, but built like a coiled spring, balanced on two legs, with a long, stiff tail for steering. And it's watching you, and here's the part that should make the hair on your neck stand up. It's thinking about you. Trudon was not a big animal. It topped out at maybe 2 meters long, including that tail, and a lot of that was slender frame. By dinosaur standards, it was a featherweight. But what it had, what made it special, was upstairs. Trudon had one of the largest brains relative to its body of any dinosaur we know of. Not just a little bigger, stand out bigger. If you ranked the dinosaurs by brain power for their size, Trudon sits at or near the very top of the list, and brain size relative to body is the single rough measure scientists reach for first when they're trying to guess at intelligence across very different animals. By that measure, Trudon was the genius of its world, and it wasn't just a big brain rattling around in an otherwise dumb body. It came packaged with exactly the tools you'd want to back that brain up. Let me walk you through the kit, because every single piece of it matters for where this is going. First, the eyes. Trudon had large eyes that faced forward, giving it binocular vision, that same overlapping forward gaze that gives you precise depth perception. It could judge distance, it could track a moving target in 3 dimensions, and those big eyes meant it could see well in low light at dusk in the gloom of a forest floor when its prey thought it was safe. A hunter that sees in the dark and judges distance perfectly is a hunter you do not want to be near. Second, the hands. Trudon had grasping hands with long, flexible fingers, the kind of hands that can hold, manipulate, grip, not flippers, not clubs, not stubs, hands that could close around something and hold it with intent. Pair grasping hands with a big brain and forward-facing eyes, and you have, on paper, the raw starting ingredients of a tool user. Those are the same three ingredients that show up much later and on a totally different branch in the apes that led to you. A big brain, good eyes, clever hands. Troodon had the starter pack. And third, it was nimble and it was fast.
And there's strong reason to think it hunted with others, not a lone ambush predator sitting in the weeds, but a coordinated animal, possibly a pack hunter, working with its own kind to bring down prey too big or too quick for one of them alone. And here's the thing about pack hunting that people miss. Pack hunting is intelligence in action. To hunt in a group, you have to read your partners, anticipate what they'll do, coordinate timing, maybe drive prey toward an ambush, maybe split a herd.
That's social problem solving. That's the kind of pressure that, over millions of years, pushes a brain to get bigger and sharper, because the smarter pack outhunts the dumber one and lives to pass it on. So now, sit with what we actually have here. In the real world, Troodon went extinct with all the rest of the non-bird dinosaurs when the rock came down. But in the world that never happened, the world where the asteroid splashes into deep ocean and the dinosaurs walk into the next morning, Troodon doesn't go anywhere. It keeps living. It keeps hunting in packs. It keeps facing all the same pressures that were already making it the smartest thing on the planet. And it has time. It has the one thing evolution loves above all else, which is millions upon millions of uninterrupted years. The asteroid stole 66 million years of dinosaur evolution from this planet in a single afternoon. Give those 66 million years back to a lineage that was already the brainiest of its age, already armed with eyes and hands and pack coordination, and you have to ask, where does it go? This isn't just idle daydreaming, by the way. This is a real thought experiment scientists have genuinely taken seriously. The idea of where a smart dinosaur lineage might have ended up given enough time. And the logic runs like this. Evolution doesn't aim at anything. It doesn't have a goal. It doesn't want intelligence. But it does respond to pressure. And every pressure that was already sharpening Troodon, the need to coordinate a hunt, the need to outwit prey, the need to read your packmates, the advantage of a better memory and faster decisions, all of those keep pushing in the same direction across deep time. Smarter hunts better, smarter survives better. Smarter has more kids. And generation by generation, brain by slightly bigger brain, the lineage creeps upward. So let me describe what that world's apex mind might look like, because it's both familiar and deeply alien. Picture the descendant of Troodon, tens of millions of years down the line. It still walks on two legs. It's lost a lot of the tail, balanced now more upright over its hips because an upright posture frees the hands, and a brain this size demands the hands be free. It has those same forward-facing eyes, but sharper now, set in a larger skull to house a brain that is kept on growing. And here's the headline, the stat that should genuinely rearrange how you think about intelligence on Earth. That brain could grow larger than any dinosaur brain that ever existed, bigger than the brain of the smartest dinosaur we ever found, by a wide margin. We are talking about a creature with the raw neural hardware to outthink anything its world had ever produced. And what does it do with that brain? Here's where it gets genuinely chilling, because the answer is a lot. This thing hunts in coordinated packs, and not the loose coordination of wolves, but something tighter, something planned. Picture it, a herd of horned grazers out on the plain, and at the tree line, a pack of these bright-eyed, upright hunters, communicating, positioning. Some of them break cover and drive the herd deliberately, herding the panic in a chosen direction, while others lie in wait exactly where the herd has been steered to run. That's not instinct, that's a plan. That's a group of minds holding a shared idea of the future and executing it together.
And it gets worse for the prey because a brain like that doesn't just plan, it deceives.
Deception is one of the great markers of intelligence because to deceive something, you have to model its mind. You have to understand what it expects and then deliberately do something else to exploit that expectation. A descendant of Trudon, hunting with deception, would fake one direction to send the herd the other way. It would use the landscape, the wind, the light. It would learn the habits of its prey and use those habits against them. It would, in short, be doing the thing we think of as distinctly clever, the thing that feels almost human, getting inside another creature's head and turning its own assumptions into a trap. And here's the part that ties the bow on it. With those grasping hands and that growing brain, this animal almost certainly uses tools. Not factories, not machines, but tools in the way a chimp uses tools, the way a crow uses tools. A stick to probe a burrow, a rock to crack something open, a sharpened edge held in a grasping hand to do a job a claw can't do as well. Once you've got the hands and the brain and the social life to teach each other tricks, simple tool use is almost inevitable, and it compounds, because the animal that learns a useful trick can pass it to its pack, and the pack can pass it to the next generation, and now you've got something that looks a lot like the beginnings of culture. Learned behavior, passed down, building up. So stop and really take in what we've built in this dead world. An upright, big-brained, hawk-eyed pack hunter that plans, deceives, uses tools, and teaches its young. If you squint, that's a person-shaped silhouette of intelligence. That's terrifyingly close to us. The dinosaurs, given their 66 stolen million years back, could have produced a thinking creature, a genuinely smart one, a problem solver and a strategist and a tool maker. Intelligence, it turns out, was not our private invention. The door to a clever mind was open to them too, and in the world that never happened, something very likely walked through it. And now here's where I have to stop you because you can feel where this is going, right? You can feel yourself wanting to say, so the dinosaurs would have built their own civilization. They'd have had their own cities, their own science, their own version of someone sitting on a couch wondering about alternate timelines. And here's the crazy part. Here's the hard, cold turn this whole story has been building toward. No, they wouldn't. They couldn't. Not ever. There is a wall, a hard ceiling, and that smart dinosaur slams straight into it and can never ever get past it. A descendant of Troodon could become the most brilliant pack hunter the world has ever seen, and it would still never build a single city, never write a single word, never light a single fire of curiosity about why it exists. And the reason why is the most important idea in this entire story. So let me explain it properly, because it's not what you think. You probably assume the wall is about brain size. Like the dinosaur just couldn't grow a big enough brain, couldn't get to the raw horsepower humans have. But that's not it. I just told you its brain could grow larger than any dinosaurs that ever lived. Raw brain power isn't the wall. The wall is something else, something stranger, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The wall is the difference between intelligence and civilization. Those are not the same thing, and almost everybody confuses them. Intelligence is the ability to solve problems, to plan, to deceive, to use a tool, to coordinate a hunt, to learn and remember and adapt. Plenty of animals have real intelligence. Crows have it, octopuses have it, wolves have it.
Our smart dinosaur has it in spades, but intelligence on its own, no matter how much of it you pile up, does not get you cities and writing and science. It just gets you a really, really clever animal. A genius hunter is still just a hunter, and you could let that lineage run for another 100 million years, and it would get to be a more and more brilliant hunter, and it would still be hunting. The cleverness deepens. The trap never opens,
because what's missing isn't more brain. What's missing is a particular weird set of conditions that lets intelligence escape the daily grind of survival and start building on itself, and the dinosaurs' world had those conditions stacked against them.
Let me give you the first piece of the wall. and it's a piece you'd never guess, the body. A descendant of Troodon, no matter how smart, is built around the body plan of a predator. It walks on 2 legs, sure, but those legs end in feet built for running and killing, and its hands, while grasping, are still the hands of an animal that uses them mainly to grab prey. To build a civilization, you need more than grasping hands. You need hands of exquisite, obsessive precision, hands that evolved over millions of years specifically for fine manipulation, for delicacy, for handling objects gently and exactly, rather than killing with them. Your hands are the product of an ancestry of climbers and grabbers and gentle manipulators, primates that spent tens of millions of years using their hands for careful, intricate work in the trees. The dinosaurs' hands are the product of an ancestry of killers. Same starter ingredient, grasping fingers, but a completely different deep history shaping what those fingers are actually good at. And the difference between can hold a rock and can do delicate, precise building work is the difference between a clever animal and a creature that can construct a world. And here's the second piece of the wall, and it's even bigger than the hands. It's about how that lineage makes its living, about the whole shape of its life, and it locks the door tighter than anything else. Our smart dinosaur is, at its core, a hunter. Its entire existence is organized around the hunt. Every advance in its intelligence, every uptick in brain power gets immediately spent on getting better at the one thing it does, which is catching and killing prey. The smarter it gets, the better it hunts, and the better it hunts, the more its smartness is rewarded, but only ever in service of that single, all-consuming task. Its intelligence is bonded to its stomach. It can never get away from the hunt long enough to point that brain at anything else. And building a civilization requires exactly that, the freedom to point your mind at things that have nothing to do with your next meal. Think about what it actually took for your ancestors to escape the hunt. It wasn't just intelligence. It was a whole pile of lucky accidents that, layered together, gave a smart animal enough breathing room to start doing things that weren't about immediate survival. Cooperative groups that shared food, so not everyone had to spend every waking hour finding their own. A diet flexible enough to get a lot of calories without an exhausting full-time hunt. And eventually, crucially, the ability to store and pass on knowledge across generations so that each generation didn't have to start from scratch but could build on what came before. That's the secret ingredient. Accumulation. Civilization isn't a smart individual. It's smart layered on smart layered on smart across thousands of generations, with each one keeping and improving on what the last one figured out. And that, right there, is the true wall. Our smart dinosaur, brilliant as it is, lives in the eternal present of the hunt. Each generation is born, learns to hunt, hunts, and dies, and the next generation has to learn to hunt all over again. Maybe a clever trick or two gets passed down. But there's no mechanism to accumulate knowledge in a way that compounds. No way for one generation's discoveries to stack on top of another's and another's until you get something none of them could have invented alone. Without accumulation, intelligence just resets over and over, every single generation, like a brilliant student who's forced to forget everything every morning and relearn it from nothing by nightfall. You can have the smartest student in the world, but if their slate gets wiped clean every single day, they will never write a book. They will never build a single thing that lasts beyond themselves. So that's the answer to the question we've been circling this entire time. In the world that never happened, would there be intelligence? Yes. Absolutely yes. Real, sharp, strategizing, tool-using, deceiving intelligence. A creature the descendant of Troodon could become that would be smarter than any dinosaur that ever lived. But would there be civilization? Would there be cities, writing, science? A creature that looks up at the stars and asks why it exists?
No, never. Not in a billion years. Because the path from intelligence to civilization runs through a needle's eye of lucky conditions. The right hands, the right way of making a living, the right freedom from the hunt, the right ability to accumulate knowledge across generations, and the dinosaur's world, for all its giants and all its glory, simply never threaded that needle. The smart dinosaur would be a magnificent animal. It would never be a person, and I want you to feel how strange and humbling that is, because it cuts both ways. On one hand, it tells you that intelligence is commonish, cheapish, that nature reaches for it again and again, that a clever brain is the kind of thing evolution stumbles into on more than one branch. The dinosaurs were getting there. On the other hand, it tells you that everything that makes you you, the asking why part, the building cities part, the looking at the stars part, that's not just intelligence. That's intelligence plus a freakishly improbable stack of conditions that almost never line up. Your kind of mind isn't the natural endpoint of getting smart. It's a fluke on top of a fluke.
The dinosaurs prove it because they got the smart part and were never going to get the rest. Let me bring this back down into a scene because the abstract version is heavy and I want you to picture the dead world one more time with this new
knowledge in your head. It's a clear night, tens of millions of years after the rock mist. Out on a moonlit plain, a pack of upright, bright-eyed hunters moves through the grass, the descendants of Troodon, the smartest creatures their world has ever produced. They've just pulled off a hunt of stunning sophistication, a coordinated drive, a feint, an ambush sprung at exactly the right moment. Prey down, the pack fed, they communicate, they share. There's even something you might call a kind of teaching the young ones watching, learning the moves. By any honest measure, these are clever animals. And above them, the same stars are out that you can see tonight, the same vast spray of light across the dark. And not one of those bright-eyed hunters looks up. Not one of them wonders what those lights are. Not one of them feels the small, cold thrill of being a tiny thing under an enormous sky and asking why any of it is here.
They are too smart to be stupid and not the right kind of smart to be us. They fed, they'll hunt again tomorrow. And tomorrow their children will have to learn it all over again. The way their parents did, the way their parents' parents did. An unbroken chain of brilliant, hungry, present tense minds stretching across deep time, and not one link in that chain ever builds a single thing that outlasts it or asks a single question that doesn't end in a meal. That's the world that never happened, full of life, full of giants, full of cleverness even, and utterly, permanently silent on the only question that makes a mind feel like more than a very good hunting machine. The dinosaurs could rule the earth forever and never know they were ruling it. They could be the smartest things alive and never know that's what they were. There would be a planet and animals on it and minds even, but no witness, nobody home to notice that any of it was happening at all. Now, let me push on this a little harder because I can already hear the objection forming, and it's a good one. You might be thinking, okay, but evolution is full of surprises, isn't it? Maybe given enough time, some weird offshoot of the dinosaurs would have stumbled into the right body, the right hands, the right way of living, the right knack for passing down knowledge. Maybe the wall isn't as solid as you're making it sound, and that's fair. Nobody can prove what would have happened across 66 million years of a timeline that doesn't exist. But here's the thing that makes the wall feel real and not just a guess. In the actual history of our actual planet, intelligence has evolved many times, in many lineages, big-brained, problem-solving, tool-using intelligence. Crows, octopuses, dolphins, elephants, wolves, our own ape relatives. Nature has built clever minds over and over and over again. And how many of them built a civilization? One. Exactly one.
out of all those clever lineages across hundreds of millions of years, only a single one ever crossed from intelligence into cities and writing and science. That's not a coincidence. That's the signature of a wall. If the jump from smart to civilized were easy, if it were just a matter of getting clever enough and waiting, we'd see it happen on more than one branch. We don't. We see intelligence everywhere and civilization exactly once, which tells you the bottleneck isn't intelligence at all. It's that bizarre, almost impossible to cross gap on the far side of it. So when I say the dinosaurs would never have built a city, I'm not pulling it from nowhere. I'm reading it off the actual record, which says that even now on this planet, with all its clever animals, that bridge has only ever been crossed a single time. The smart dinosaur would be one more clever lineage on a planet full of them, and the odds say it stays clever and never becomes anything more. And that uniqueness, that one and only onceness of what you are, is the thing I really want to land before we move toward the end of this story. Because we throw the word human around like it's ordinary, like being a person is just the default setting for a smart animal. It isn't. It's the rarest thing we know of. On the only planet we've ever found life, life has been around for billions of years, has produced an unimaginable diversity of creatures, has built clever minds again and again, and has crossed the line into civilization exactly one time, with one lineage in one improbable window, on the far side of one catastrophe that almost didn't happen. You're not the default. You're the single most improbable outcome in the entire history of life on Earth, and you're so used to being you that it feels normal. So let me start tightening all of this together, because the pieces are now all on the table and the shape of the final twist is coming into view. We've got a rock that almost missed,
That came down on the worst possible spot at the worst possible minute and killed 3/4 of all life. We've got the dinosaurs thriving and dominant and breathing through a system more efficient than yours.
Taken out at their peak by pure bad luck. We've got the mammals locked at badger size for 150 million years, freed only by the catastrophe.
We've got the smart dinosaur that could have been brilliant and deceiving and tool-using, slamming forever into the wall between intelligence and civilization. And we've got the cold fact that crossing that wall has happened exactly once in the whole story of life, and that once is you. Now, line those up and look at what they're pointing at, because they all point at the same place. Every single thing in this story is a condition that had to break a very specific way for you to exist. The rock had to hit. It had to hit the bad spot. It had to come at the wrong minute, not a few minutes off into the deep ocean. The dinosaurs, who were not going anywhere on their own, had to be removed all at once to clear the stage. The badger-sized gridlock of the mammal world had to be shattered so your ancestors could finally grow. And then, against staggering odds, your particular lineage had to be the one in 100 million that didn't just get clever, but threaded the impossible needle from clever to civilized. Every one of those is a coin flip, and every single one had to land the one specific way that leads to a creature capable of hearing this story. And that's the trap this whole thing has been quietly walking you into. The paradox sitting at the dead center of it. Stay with me here, because it's beautiful and it's a little vertiginous. The fact that you exist, the fact that there is a you here at all, with a mind big enough and free enough and curious enough to wonder about a world where the asteroid missed. That fact is itself the answer to the question. You want to know whether the asteroid hit or missed. Look in a mirror. The asteroid hit. It had to have hit, because your mind, the very mind doing the wondering, only exists in the timeline where it hit. In the world where the rock splashed harmlessly into the deep ocean, there is no you to ask the question. There's no one at all.
Just the dead world, full of giants and clever hunters and silence, with nobody home to notice it's there, so the very act of wondering about the world that never happened is proof that it never happened. Your curiosity is the receipt. Every time a human being looks up and asks why we're here, that question is only possible because of the single most destructive day this planet ever had. The dinosaurs had to die for the question to exist.
Their extinction isn't just a thing that happened before you. It's the precondition for there being a you to think about it at all. You are, in the most literal possible sense, a thought that the universe could only have after the dinosaurs were gone. Let me sit you back down in the scene one more time with everything you now know, because I want the weight of it to land in your body and not just your head. Picture the two worlds side by side. In one, the rock comes down in the deep blue, far out to sea. The tsunamis roll and fade, the dust thins in days, the sun comes back, and the next morning the horned herds are grazing, and the long-necked giants are stripping the high branches, and somewhere a bright-eyed pack is already measuring the distance to its prey. That world goes on for tens of millions of years. It fills with life and cleverness, and it never once contains a single creature that looks up at the stars and feels small and wonders why. That world is magnificent, and it is empty of meaning because meaning needs a mind to hold it, and that world never grows the one impossible kind of mind that can. And in the other world, the real one, the rock, comes down on a shallow shelf of poison rock at exactly the wrong minute, and the sky goes dark for a year, and the cold comes, and 3 out of 4 species die, and 165 million years of dinosaur rule ends in fire and famine, and the long silence after, and out of that grave, out of that unimaginable death, a small badger-sized survivor finally finds the stage empty, and the door finally opens, and across the next 66 million years, the most improbable thing in the history of life claws its way upright and grows the kind of brain that can do the one thing no clever hunter ever could. It can stop, it can look up, it can ask why, and that's you, sitting wherever you're sitting, hearing this, holding in your one improbable mind, the entire dead world that had to not exist so that you could. The dinosaurs ruled for an age beyond imagining and never knew it. You've ruled for a blink, and you know exactly how strange it is, because you're the only kind of thing that ever could. The asteroid that almost missed is the reason you get to be the witness. And in the next part of this story, we're going to take that paradox and turn it all the way over, because there's one more layer to this, one more twist in what it actually means that your entire existence was paid for in advance by the death of the world that should have won. Hold on to that. It only gets stranger from here. So let's turn the paradox all the way over, because there's a flavor to it that's even weirder than you only exist because they died, and it has to do with luck and with how monstrously unlikely the chain that made you actually is. I told you every step had to break a specific way. Now I want to actually walk you down that chain, link by link, and show you just how thin the thread is that you're hanging from. Because once you really count the coin flips, the fact that you're sitting there at all stops feeling normal and starts feeling like winning a lottery that was rigged a million different ways against you. Start at the top. The rock had to exist in the first place, a 10-kilometer chunk of debris left over from the birth of the solar system, drifting on exactly the orbit that would eventually cross Earth's path at exactly the wrong moment. That's flip number 1, and it's already absurd because the solar system is mostly empty space, and the odds of any given rock hitting any given planet at any given time are tiny. But fine, it happened. It was always going to hit. Flip number 2, the one we've hammered on, is where it hit. The worst spot on Earth, the shallow sulfur-rich shelf of the Yucatan, instead of the deep ocean that covers most of the planet's surface. Most of Earth is water, deep water, and most of that deep water would have softened the blow. The rock found the one kind of target that turns a regional disaster into a global extinction. Flip 2, and then flip 3, the timing, the rotation of the planet that put that exact bad spot in the crosshairs at that exact minute. A few minutes either way, and the Earth has turned, and the Yucatan rolls out of the line of fire. So already, before life even responds, you've got 3 improbable things stacked. The rock exists, it hits the worst possible chemistry, and the planet's spin lines that chemistry up at the precise moment of impact. Any one of those breaks the other way, and the dinosaurs survive, and you never happen. And we're just getting started, because surviving the impact is only the first gate. Here's flip 4, and it's one we haven't talked about yet, and it's genuinely wild. The extinction had to be selective in exactly the right way. It killed 3 out of 4 species. Yes, but which ones it killed and which ones it spared was not random in its consequences. The big dinosaurs died, but your ancestors, those small, badger-sized and smaller mammals, lived. And the reason they lived is itself a stack of lucky traits. They were small, so they needed very little food to survive the long famine. They could burrow, so they had shelter from the freezing dark and the firestorm. Many of them could eat almost anything: seeds, insects, dead matter, the kind of scraps that were still around when the green world died. And, crucially, a lot of them could go dormant, slow their bodies down, ride out the bad times on almost nothing. Think about that. Every single one of those traits: small body, burrowing, flexible diet, the ability to hunker down and wait, was a survival trait in the apocalypse. And your ancestors happened to have all of them. Not because they were planning for a catastrophe. They had no idea it was coming, but because the very thing that had kept them small and humble for 150 million years, that gridlock that trapped them at badger size, had also, by complete accident, made them into the perfect survivors of exactly this kind of disaster. The giants died precisely because they were giants, because a 50-ton body needs a forest's worth of food a day, and there was no food. The meek inherited the earth, not because of any virtue, but because being small and adaptable was, on the one day in 165 million years, that it mattered, the thing that kept you breathing. Flip 4 lands in your favor by the sheerest accident of who you happened to already be. And here's a thought that genuinely turns my stomach a little when I sit with it. The same traits that doomed the dinosaurs were the traits that made them the rulers in the first place. Being huge, being specialized, being the dominant apex form, that's what winning looked like for 165 million years. The giants were the success stories. The mammals were the also-rans, the leftovers, the things scurrying in the dark because they couldn't compete for anything better. And then in a single afternoon, the entire definition of fit flipped upside down. Suddenly, being huge and dominant was a death sentence, and being small and humble was the golden ticket. The rules of the game didn't just change, they inverted, and everything that had been winning started losing, and everything that had been losing started winning, all in the space of a year of darkness. The dinosaurs didn't lose because they did anything wrong. They lost because the rock rewrote the rules of survival overnight, and the rewrite happened to favor exactly the kind of creature you came from. And I think there's something important hiding in that, something that goes way beyond dinosaurs, and I want to make it explicit because it's one of the truest things this whole story has to teach. There's no such thing as being permanently fit. There's no trait, no body plan, no strategy that wins forever, because winning only ever means matching the current conditions, and the conditions can change in an afternoon. The dinosaurs were the most successful land animals that ever lived. peak of their game, masters of the planet, and it bought them exactly nothing when the rules changed. Success in one world is meaningless when the world becomes a different world overnight. That's not just a fact about extinction. That's a fact about everything that has ever tried to last. And it's worth holding on to, because it's the kind of perspective you can only have from inside a mind that exists, because the most dominant creatures in history found out the hard way that dominance guarantees nothing. Okay, so now let's get to Flip 5 and beyond, because surviving the impact is one thing, but turning a badger-sized survivor into you is a whole separate gauntlet of unlikely events, and each one is its own miracle. After the dust cleared, the stage was empty, and the mammals finally had room to grow. And grow they did, fast, exploding into all the shapes and sizes the dinosaurs used to fill, because for the first time in 150 million years, the door was open and the niches were empty. But mammals got bigger and more diverse is not the same as a creature that builds cities eventually showed up. That last part required its own absurd run of luck, and most of it had nothing to do with intelligence at all, the same way the smart dinosaur's failure had nothing to do with brain size. Think about what your lineage specifically had to go through. Your ancestors had to become tree dwellers, climbers, the early primates, because life in the trees is what gave you the hands. Climbing through branches for tens of millions of years is what shaped grasping hands into hands of fine, precise, gentle control, hands that could later do delicate work, the exact thing the dinosaurs' killer hands could never become. You got your civilization-capable hands not because you were aiming for civilization, but because your ancestors happened to spend ages in the trees gripping branches. Another accident. Another flip that had to land a specific way, and only landed that way because of where your particular ancestors happened to live. And then there's the eyes. Living in the trees, judging the distance to the next branch over and over, generation after generation, sharpened forward-facing vision and depth perception. Color vision came along to spot ripe fruit against green leaves. So your eyes, the eyes you're using right now, are tree eyes shaped by the specific problem of not falling out of a canopy. None of it was for civilization. All of it became the raw material for civilization later by accident, because evolution doesn't plan, it just leaves a trail of solutions to old problems that occasionally, randomly, turn out to be the perfect starting point for something nobody could have predicted. And here's the deeper point I keep circling, the one that ties the smart dinosaur and your tree-climbing ancestors into the same lesson. Civilization wasn't built by intelligence alone. It was built by intelligence that happened to land in a body with the right hands, with the right eyes, with the right social life, with the right freedom from the eternal hunt, and the right knack for passing knowledge down so it could accumulate. The dinosaurs got the intelligence and missed the rest. Your lineage, through a chain of accidents, none of which were about being smart, assembled the rest first. The hands, the eyes, the social cooperation, the flexible diet, and then the intelligence got layered on top of a body and a way of life that could actually use it. That's the difference. That's the whole difference. You didn't win the intelligence lottery. Plenty of creatures won that. You won the much rarer lottery of being smart inside exactly the right kind of animal at exactly the right time on a stage that had only just been cleared. Let me put a number on how rare the right time is, because it's easy to lose the scale of it. The window your ancestors needed, that stretch after the dinosaurs were gone, with the stage empty and the climate eventually stable enough and the food available, that's a sliver. And within that sliver, the specific run from tree-dwelling primate to upright tool user to a creature that asks why, that's an even thinner sliver inside it. We talked about how the whole human genus goes back maybe 2.5 million years against the dinosaurs' 165 million years of rule. So even after the door opened, even after the stage was clear,
It took tens of millions of years of accidents stacking up before anything human-shaped appeared. And when it did, it appeared for a flicker, a blink at the very tail end of the whole story. You are not the long dominant chapter. The dinosaurs were that.
You are the last few words on the last page, written in a hand that only exists because the previous chapter ended in catastrophe. And now, here's where I want to take the paradox and twist it one more notch, because there's a version of this that's almost too much to hold in your head at once. Every single one of your direct ancestors, going back through the small mammals, back through the survivor that crawled out of the apocalypse, back further still, every one of them, without a single exception, lived long enough to reproduce. Think about that. In a chain stretching back tens of millions of years, through ice and famine and predators and disease and disaster, not one link in your personal ancestral chain died before passing on life. Not one. If a single one of them had been eaten one day too early, had starved one winter, had simply not found a mate, the entire chain snaps, and you are erased along with everyone who would ever have descended from you. You are the living end of an unbroken winning streak, millions of links long, against odds that should have killed the line 1,000 times over. And the very first link in that streak, the moment that gave the whole thing its opening, was a badger-sized creature surviving the day the rock came down. That's the thing about the existence paradox that I think is the most beautiful and the most dizzying. It's not just that the dinosaurs had to die, it's that after they died, every single thing had to keep going right, link after link after link, for 66 million years, with no breaks, no fatal accidents in your specific line, no failures to reproduce, all the way down to the precise pair of your parents meeting, to the precise moment you came to be. The asteroid opened the door, but the door opening was just the first improbable event in a cascade of improbable events that all had to land, and you are the proof that, against all reason, every single one of them did. So when people say, we're so insignificant, just a speck in a vast universe, I get it, and the scale of time and space really is humbling. But there's another way to read all of this that I find more honest and a lot more staggering. You are not insignificant. You are the single most improbable thing in the entire history of this planet. The outcome of a chain of coin flips so long and so unlikely that it borders on the impossible, surviving a catastrophe that killed 3/4 of all life, threading a needle from intelligence to civilization that has only been threaded once in billions of years, riding an unbroken ancestral streak millions of generations long. The universe is vast, and you are small, sure, but the universe is also, as far as we can tell, almost entirely empty of anyone capable of noticing that it's vast. And you can notice. That's not insignificance. That's the rarest thing there is. Let me drop you back into the scene with all of this loaded in, because I keep wanting to make the abstract concrete, and there's a particular image that, for me, captures the whole thing. Picture the moment right at the boundary. The dust is everywhere. The world has gone dark and cold. The great forests are dying. The giants are starving. The long silence is settling over a ruined planet. And down in the dark, in a burrow under the frozen ground, there's a small, warm creature, no bigger than a badger, curled up, its body slowed almost to stopping, waiting out the apocalypse on nothing. It has no idea that the rulers of the world are dying above it. It has no idea that the rules of survival just flipped in its favor. It has no plan, no ambition, no concept of what's happening. It's just small enough and adaptable enough and lucky enough to still be breathing when the dark finally lifts. And that creature, that unremarkable little survivor, is you. That's your great, however many times a grandparent, and the entire human story. Every city and song and question about the stars is folded up inside that small, sleeping body in the dark, waiting. It didn't earn it, it didn't deserve it. It just happened to have the traits that mattered on the one day they mattered, and it happened to live. And because it lived, eventually, you do. The whole towering, improbable structure of you rests on that small, warm thing surviving a night it didn't even understand was happening. Now contrast that with the giants dying above it and feel the cruelty and the beauty of the swap.
The most magnificent creatures the planet ever produced, the 50-ton sauropods, the hawk-eyed tyrants, the armored herds, the brilliant pack-hunting troodons, all of them with their efficient bird lungs and their sharp eyes and their cleverness, all of them dying in the dark and the cold because they were too big, too specialized, too perfectly adapted to a world that had just ceased to exist. And the future of all intelligence on Earth, the entire lineage that would one day ask why, hiding in a hole in a body so humble it had spent 150 million years being nobody. The kings fall, and the nobody survives. And that swap, that exact inversion, is the hinge the entire human story turns on. And here's the part that I think is the real gut punch of the whole paradox, the thing that sits underneath everything else. You can't even be sad about it. I mean, you can feel the pull of it, the loss of that magnificent world, those incredible animals, the millions of years of life that the rock erased. There's a real grief available there if you reach for it. But you can't actually wish it had gone the other way, because wishing the asteroid had missed is wishing yourself out of existence. There is no version of "I wish the dinosaurs had survived" that doesn't also mean "I wish I had never been born." Because those are the same wish. The you that would do the wishing only exists because the wish didn't come true. Every time you mourn the dead world, you're mourning the only event that made you possible to do the mourning. You are grief and gratitude wrapped around the exact same moment, and you can't pull them apart. That's the strange emotional knot at the center of this. The worst day in the history of life on this planet, the day 3/4 of everything died, is also, from your specific point of view, the most important and most fortunate day that ever happened, because it's the day your existence became possible. The same fire that ended the dinosaurs, lit the fuse, that 66 million years later becomes you. You are the child of the catastrophe, not in spite of it, because of it. The disaster isn't a dark thing in your past that you overcame. The disaster is your origin. It's the reason there's a you at all. And I want to push this even one step further into the genuinely vertiginous part, because the logic doesn't stop. If the asteroid is the reason you exist, then so is every single thing that had to happen before the asteroid all the way back. The dinosaurs had to rule for 165 million years to keep your ancestors small and humble, and therefore perfectly built to survive the disaster. So the dinosaurs ruling the very thing that kept your lineage down, that long oppression in the shadows, was also necessary for you, because it's what shaped your ancestors into survivors. If the mammals had broken out early, had gotten big and dominant before the rock came, they'd have died like the dinosaurs died. For the same reason, it's the fact that they were held down, kept small, trapped in that badger-sized gridlock that saved them. Your ancestors' 150 million year humiliation in the dark is the thing that let them inherit the earth. The shadow was the shelter. Let that one sit, because it completely scrambles the usual story. We tell the tale like the mammals were the underdogs who finally got their shot, the plucky little guys who were held back and then triumphed. But the truth is more tangled and more profound. They didn't triumph despite being held back. They survived because they were held back. The exact condition that looks like oppression, being kept small and humble for an unimaginable stretch of time, was the precise thing that prepared them to outlive the kings. Every disadvantage was secretly an investment. The smallness that meant they could never compete was the smallness that meant they barely needed food. The humility that kept them in burrows was the burrowing that sheltered them from the firestorm and the freeze. They were being saved the whole time, and it looked exactly like losing. And I don't think that's only a story about mammals and dinosaurs, by the way. I think that's one of the deepest patterns this whole tale has to offer, and it's the kind of thing you can only see from 66 million years away. Sometimes the thing that looks like being kept down is the thing that's keeping you alive for a future that hasn't arrived yet. Sometimes the disadvantage is the preparation. The mammals couldn't have known it. They had no idea the rock was coming. No idea that their long, humble, unremarkable existence in the shadows was quietly forging them into the only kind of creature that could survive what was coming. They just lived, small and overlooked, and it turned out that being small and overlooked was the most important survival strategy in the history of life. You can't plan for that. You can only be it and find out later, 66 million years later, through the mind of a descendant who finally has the perspective to look back and understand what the smallness was for. So here we are, near the end of the middle of this story, with the whole improbable machine laid bare. The rock that almost missed and didn't. The worst spot at the worst minute. The selective death that took the kings and spared the nobodies. The inversion of the rules that turned dominance into a death sentence and humility into a golden ticket. The long chain of accidents, the tree climbing that built your hands, the canopy judging that built your eyes, the unbroken ancestral streak millions of links long, the single threading of the needle from intelligence to civilization that has only ever happened once, and underneath all of it, the paradox that you can't escape, that you exist as living proof. The asteroid hit, that your curiosity is the receipt, that to wonder about the dead world is to confirm it died, and that the worst day in Earth's history is the most fortunate day in yours, because it's the day you became possible. And there's still one more turn to take, because so far we've been looking backward down the chain
at all the things that had to happen to make you. But the paradox has a forward-facing edge too, a flip side that's just as strange, and it's about what it means to be the witness, the one creature that can look at all of this
And understand it. The dinosaurs ruled for an age and never knew they ruled. The smart hunters of the world that never was could plan and deceive and never once wonder why.
And then there's you, the improbable child of the catastrophe, holding the entire dead world in your mind, able to do the one thing none of them ever could. In the last part of this story, we're going to follow that thread all the way out to what it actually means that you, specifically, are the universe's way of finally noticing itself, and why that might be the most important consequence of a rock that almost missed 66 million years ago. Hold on to everything. It comes together at the end. So let's follow that last thread all the way out, the one about being the witness, because it's where everything we've built finally clicks into one piece.
I want you to hold two pictures in your head at the same time. Picture 1. The dead world, the timeline where the rock missed, full of giants and armored herds and brilliant pack hunters under a sky packed with stars, and not one creature in it ever looking up. Picture 2. You, right now, wherever you are. A soft, warm animal that came out of a burrow 66 million years ago, looking at those same stars and feeling something. The difference between those two pictures is the entire point of this story.
One world has everything except a witness, the other world grew one, and you are it. Here's what I mean by witness and why it's not just a poetic word. For 4.5 billion years, this planet did its thing. Continents drifted, oceans rose and fell, life appeared and exploded and got wiped out and came back. The dinosaurs ruled for 165 million years, and in all that time, all those ages of mountains and forests and seas and creatures, there was nobody home to know what was happening. The Earth was a stage with an incredible show running on it and zero audience, no one to see the giants, no one to mark the catastrophe, no one to hold the whole story in a mind and understand it. It all just happened, in the dark, unwitnessed, the way a tree falls in an empty forest forever. And then, on the far side of the worst day in that whole history, the audience finally showed up. You, not just you personally, but your kind, the one lineage that crossed the wall, the one creature that can take in the world and understand it and remember it and ask about it. And here's the thing that gives me chills every single time. When you learn about the dinosaurs, when you picture that asteroid coming in, when you imagine the dead world where they survived, you are doing something that has never been possible before in the entire history of this planet. You are the universe looking back at itself. You are the cosmos finally growing an eye and pointing it at its own past. The dinosaurs lived and died unwitnessed, and then, 66 million years later, a descendant of the things that survived them learned their story and held it in mind, and in that moment, for the first time, the dinosaurs were finally seen. Let that land. Every dinosaur that ever lived, every one of those magnificent animals, lived its entire life and died completely unknown, unrecorded, unwitnessed, swallowed by deep time with no one to remember it. And the only reason we know they existed at all, the only reason there is anyone to dig up their bones and name them and wonder about them and make this very story, is that they died. If they'd survived, there'd be no us, and so there'd be no one to ever know the dinosaurs existed. The dead world isn't just empty of human-style minds, it's empty of memory itself. In that world, the dinosaurs rule forever and are never known by anyone, not even themselves. It's only in the world where they died that they get remembered at all. Their extinction is the price of their immortality in our minds. They had to die to be remembered, because dying is what made the rememberer, and that, I think, is the deepest layer of this whole paradox, the one underneath all the others. You only exist because they died, and they only get to be known because you exist. So the two facts feed each other in a loop. The dinosaurs gave you existence by dying, and you give the dinosaurs existence in memory by being here to remember. You are their afterlife. Every time a kid stares up at a museum skeleton with their jaw hanging open, every time someone watches a documentary about the day the asteroid hit, every time you sit and imagine the world where they survived, the dinosaurs live again for a moment in the one place they can still live, which is inside the mind of the creature that only exists because they're gone. You and the dinosaurs are bound together across 66 million years in the strangest possible deal. They traded their world for your existence, and you pay them back by being the only thing in the universe that knows they were ever here. Now, here's the crazy part, and it's the turn I've been saving. We keep framing this as luck, as a freak accident, as a coin flip that happened to land your way, and it was. But there's another way to look at the witness thing that flips the whole feeling of it. Because it means the asteroid didn't just kill the dinosaurs and clear the stage. It did something far stranger. It set in motion the one chain of events that would eventually let the universe become aware of itself. Before that rock, this corner of the cosmos was unconscious, just matter doing what matter does, no one watching. After that rock, 66 million years after, the matter woke up. It organized itself through that long, improbable chain into a creature that could look around and go, wait, what is all this? Why is it here? What happened before me? The asteroid is, in a very real sense, the moment the universe started down the road to opening its eyes, and it almost missed. Think about how close that came to not happening.
A few minutes of trajectory, a few hundred kilometers of geography, the rock splashes into the deep ocean, the dinosaurs survive, and this whole region of the cosmos stays asleep, possibly forever. No witness, no memory, no one ever knowing any of it was here. The lights stay off, and the only reason the lights came on, the only reason there is anyone anywhere near here to know that stars exist and that they're far away and that they're balls of burning gas, the only reason the universe gets to be known at all in this corner of it is that one rock, 66 million years ago, didn't miss. The awakening of this whole part of reality balanced on the same coin flip as your existence. They're the same coin flip, you being here and the universe having an eye to see itself with are the exact same event. And I find that almost unbearably beautiful because it reframes what you are. You're not just a clever animal that got lucky. You're the part of the universe that can know itself. You're the audience the show waited 4.5 billion years to grow. Every time you understand something true about the world, the cosmos is understanding a little bit of itself through you. That's not a small thing. That's possibly the most significant thing that has ever happened in this corner of reality, and it's happening every time you stop and actually think about where you came from. The dinosaurs couldn't do it. The brilliant pack hunters of the dead world couldn't do it. Crows can't. Octopuses can't. Wolves can't. You can. And you can only because a rock that almost missed hit. So let me pull every thread of this together now. All of it, because we've traveled a long way, and I want you to hold the whole shape at once before we close. 66 million years ago, a rock 10 kilometers wide came screaming toward Earth at 20 kilometers a second. 4 hours before impact, its fate was sealed, and the dinosaurs, though they were still chewing ferns and ruling the world with no idea. It almost missed in the sense that mattered. A few minutes of timing, a few hundred kilometers of aim, and it would have come down in the deep ocean and harmed almost nothing.
Instead, it hit the worst spot on the planet, a shallow shelf of sulfur-rich rock, and released the energy of 100 million nuclear bombs and threw up a shroud of dust that blocked the sun for a year and dropped the temperature by almost 30 degrees and killed 3 out of every 4 species on Earth. It ended a dynasty that had ruled for 165 million years, 66 times longer than the entire human lineage has existed. A dynasty that was not declining but thriving at its absolute peak, with giants breathing through bird lungs so efficient they grew to 50 tons when no land mammal ever beat 20, with tyrants whose hawk-sharp eyes could spot prey 6 kilometers off, with armored herds so vast they made up 5 of every 6 large fossils at the end, with the brilliant Troodon already carrying the largest relative brain of any dinosaur, and the eyes and the hands and the pack coordination that are the raw starter kit of a thinking mind. None of it was supposed to end. It ended on a coin flip. And in the world where the coin landed the other way, where the rock splashed harmlessly into the deep, the dinosaurs walk into the next morning and keep ruling for tens of millions of more years. The mammals, your ancestors, stay locked at badger size, not by the dinosaurs, but by each other, jammed in a waiting room with no exits forever. And intelligence still arises because the door to a clever mind was open to the dinosaurs too, and a descendant of Troodon becomes an upright, bright-eyed pack-hunting strategist that plans and deceives and uses tools and teaches its young, a creature smarter than any dinosaur that ever lived. But it slams forever into the wall between intelligence and civilization, the wall built of the wrong hands and the hunt-bonded mind and the inability to accumulate knowledge across generations, the wall that has only ever been crossed once in the whole history of life. So that world is full of life and full of cleverness and absolutely silent on the only question that matters, with no one ever looking up, no witness, no memory, the lights forever off. And in the world where the coin landed your way, where the rock hit, 3/4 of everything died, and out of that grave a small, warm creature that survived the dark because it was small enough to need almost nothing and could burrow away from the freeze and eat anything and sleep through the worst of it, that nobody, that overlooked humble thing, crawled out onto an empty stage and found the door finally open, and across 66 million years it climbed into the trees and built hands of fine, precise control, and forward eyes that judge distance, and a social life that shares food, and a brain that grew and grew until, against staggering odds, it threaded the one needle that has only been threaded once,
From intelligence into civilization, and stood upright and looked at the stars and asked why. And that's you. So here's the final paradox, the one this whole story has been walking you toward from the very first sentence. And now you have everything you need to feel the full weight of it. If you can hear this story, the asteroid hit. It had to have hit.
Because your mind, the very mind doing the listening and the wondering, only exists in the timeline where the rock came down on the worst spot at the worst minute and killed the world that should have won. In the world where it missed, there is no you to wonder. The wondering is the proof. Your curiosity is the receipt. The fact that you can imagine the dead world is the ironclad evidence that it stayed dead, that it never happened, that the kings fell and the nobody survived, and the nobody eventually became the one thing in all of creation that could look back and understand the whole impossible trade. And you can't even wish it had gone the other way, because to wish the dinosaurs had survived is to wish yourself out of existence, and the you that would do the wishing is the proof the wish never came true. You are grief and gratitude wrapped around the exact same moment. The worst day in the history of life on Earth is the most fortunate day in the history of you, because it is the day you became possible. You are the child of the catastrophe, not in spite of it, because of it. The fire that ended them is the fuse that 66 million years later becomes you, sitting there alive, aware, the universe's own eye finally open, looking back across all that time at the rock that almost missed and didn't, and made you instead. So the next time you catch yourself feeling small, like a speck, like nothing much, remember what you actually are. You are the single most improbable outcome in the entire history of this planet. You survived a catastrophe that killed 3/4 of all life. You rode an unbroken ancestral streak millions of generations long, with not one fatal break. You threaded a needle that has only been threaded once in billions of years, and you came out the other side as the one kind of creature that can know any of it happened. The dinosaurs ruled for an age and never knew it. You've ruled for a blink, and you know exactly how strange and rare and precious that is, because you're the only kind of thing that ever could. That's not insignificance in a universe that is almost entirely empty of anyone who can notice it. Being the one who notices is just about the most significant thing there is. The asteroid that almost missed is the reason you get to be the witness. So be one. Look up tonight, the way that bright-eyed dead world hunter never could, and actually see it, the dark and the stars and the staggering depth of time behind you, and know that you're the part of all of it that finally gets to look. The dinosaurs traded their world so that 66 million years later, someone could stand here and see. Don't waste the view. That's the whole story.
A rock that almost missed, a world that should have won, a nobody in a burrow, and you at the end of the longest, luckiest chain there ever was, awake, aware, and the only one home to know that any of it was ever here at all.